This is an introduction to the Garmin's GNS530 GPS made by RealSimGear, which is a recent addition to the flight simulator at the Robert Morgade Library. Let's go over this in pretty good detail. If you notice on the left side, we have our radio stack. These are our COM1 and navigation or VLOC1 radio frequencies. The top number is our active radio frequency. That's the one that we're communicating on currently. The bottom number is a standby frequency. That's the one that we're going to switch to either right away or sometime in the near future. That applies both for the communications radio, which is our person-to-person radio, or the navigation radio, which is airplane to instrument or beacon or whatever is out there for the airplane to talk to radio. This is for humans, this is for non-humans. So when we have our frequency, we want to set a frequency below. We want to go to change to ground, so we're going to go to 121.7. Once we have our frequency set, in order to go there, we swap the frequencies with our communication swap button. Now our ground frequency is set. Now if we want to go back and listen to the ATIS frequency, we can change this again. The outer knob turns the numbers to the left of the decimal point. The inner knob turns the numbers to the right of the decimal point. And again, we hit the swap button and our radio comes alive, and you can tell somebody's transmitting, which is the ATIS, because it says RX up there. So now we're hearing the radio from the ATIS here at Stewart Field. And if we want to go back to the tower, we switch this back to tower frequency, if I can figure out which way to turn the button. Hit the swap button, and now we are on tower frequency. Now if we want to go to the navigation radios, we push this button, and that makes the navigation radio active. And here we can set whatever frequencies we need, whether it be a VOR, an ILS frequency, whichever we need in order to accomplish our task. And then once that frequency is set, we press the swap button. Now these two volume buttons over here don't do anything. They actually control your volume on a real GPS, but here they don't do anything. So that's our radios that we have on the left-hand side of the GPS. On the bottom, we have several buttons that bring up certain functions within the GPS. The first button is the CDI button, or course deviation indicator. Basically, this is going to change you from radio navigation to GPS navigation. Meaning, if it's on VLOC, then your autopilot is going to follow whatever radio you are tuned into in your navigation radio, be it a VOR beacon, an ILS channel, whatever. If it's on GPS, autopilot is going to follow the flight plan you have in here, or take you directly to a geographical location indicated by either an airway, a fix, any point on the map, or an actual latitude and longitude location that you put in. The next button is your OBS, or Omni Bearing Selector. We're going to get into this later, but it turns your system from standard OBS to suspend, and we're not going to worry about that today. The next one is a message button. When this light lights up, and sometimes it'll flash, tells you there's a message, so you press it, and it's going to give you an important message. Press it again, and it goes away. The next button is your flight plan button. This is the one that's going to get worn out first. Press it, and it'll bring up your flight plan. And this indicates your active flight plan It gives you all of your waypoints. It gives you your direction to track, the distance, and the cumulative distance. Now there's a little bar down here with boxes. This tells you what pages you have. So let's back up. We're going to come to the first page group, and this is your navigation or nav page group. The first window is your flight plan. This shows you the map as your aircraft is facing, so you will only see what is in front of you. And we can see here our flight plan comes along the right side here. Now if we turn the small knob, this brings us to our map view, which gives us a north-facing view. So this is Stewart. Stoop is to the northeast. And if we use our buttons here, the range buttons, this will change our zoom level. I like to think of it as if we press the down arrow, that's moving our camera closer to the earth. If we press the up arrow, it's moving our camera farther from the earth. So as we go like that, we can see we can zoom all the way out. And now we're looking from the Bahamas up to Daytona Beach and all the way out to Tampa. We zoom in, and now we're getting really close to Stewart and its airspace. On the side here gives us information about the next waypoint on our flight plan. It's giving us the waypoint name, which is KFPR for the Treasure Coast International or Fort Pierce. This is the direction to track. It's a heading of 247 degrees. We are actually facing 297 degrees. And this is the distance to that waypoint. And below that is our current ground speed. Since we are sitting on the runway and not moving, our ground speed naturally is 0. The importance between the map and the flight plan is if I zoom out of the flight plan, I still only see what's in front of me. This is all that I can see is what is in front of me, not behind me. So in the map, I can zoom out and see everything around me. And that's 150 nautical mile range. In fact, if you see, I can zoom in and get a little bit idea of the runways and of the airport. But if I come back to here, I zoom in, and it's facing the direction that the aircraft is facing. So I can't see Fort Lauderdale anymore from here. But from the map page, I can see Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Palm Beach. So that's the importance between the first box, shows where you're headed. The second box shows everything around you. And the third box is vertical navigation. This will calculate for you how far away from a waypoint you need to start a descent. First of all, anytime you see something without a cursor, you need to press this button and a cursor will appear. So now we need to turn the knob and give it a target altitude. So we want to be at 1,000 feet. Something to remember about the outer or larger and the inner or smaller knobs. The outer one will select a different field. The inner one will change the content of that field. So I'm going to turn the outer knob, and now I'm going to change, I want to be at 1,000 feet, 3 miles, before, some of the options are before or after, and here I get to put in something that is in my flight plan. So I can choose Fort Pierce, Stewart, or Stoop. So I'm going to choose Fort Pierce. So I want to be 1,000 feet, 3 miles before Fort Pierce. And I want to descend at a rate of 700 feet per minute. Now, when I take off and when I start flying, I will get a number here. And it will tell me how far I have to go before I need to begin a 700 foot per minute descent. If I am off, either I'm descending too slow or too fast, this will tell me, and then I can adjust my vertical speed profile so that I arrive at 0, 3 nautical miles at 1,000 feet from KFPR. Takes a little practice, but it's a pretty cool tool. So how do you get back to the main screen if you're completely lost? Well, let's look at these buttons over here. We've already seen the range buttons. We'll get into the Direct To menu and the Enter button and the Clear in more detail. But if I want to get back to the flight plan and for some reason I can't get to it from here, press and hold the Clear button and it takes you right there. You've got to hold it for at least a second. And that brings you right back to your first navigational window. The second page group is your waypoint group. And this will give you information of all of your different waypoints. So the first window here is our airport. It's telling us the airport that we're at. It's giving us our latitude and longitude, our elevation, what kind of fuel is available, and what kind of approaches there are. It will tell us information for radar and airspace if we have it. The next button over gives us information of our runways, how big it is, what surface it is with a diagram. Now if we push the button and turn this, we can change runways. So now we're looking at 1230. Turn it again, we're looking at 1634. And then bring it back, brings us back to 725. So we can look at the different runways at our airfield. Press the button again to take the cursor off. Now this page gives us our communication for the current airport or waypoint. Then this shows us our approaches. So here's the information for an approach. Again, I can press the cursor button and select a different approach. Now this time I have to press the Enter key to select it. Now this gives me information. Do I want to take vectors, or is there another initial approach fix that I want to choose? So if I want to choose Monad, I can press Enter. Now it's giving me the option to load or activate. Load means it's going to go into the flight plan and be ready for me. Activate means it's going to start working now. So I'm just going to load it. So now I have an approach for Stewart in my flight plan. So let's take a look at that. And here's my first flight plan, and now we've got all of this in here. Now this is our nearest group. This is telling us what runways are nearest to us. So obviously Stewart is the nearest because we're at Stewart. It's telling us we have an RNAV approach, that the runway is 5,816 feet. So we can come in here, move down to different airports. These tell us the bearing. It is a bearing of 259 degrees. It has a 4,000 foot runway with a VFR approach, and it is 6.9 miles away. And it'll go all the way down here and give you all of these airports. Now, if you want to go directly to that airport, if you're in an emergency and you need to find a place to land, you find one that's close enough, you can hit the Direct To button and activate that, and that'll give you a line directly to that airport. Here's the nearest intersections. Here's the nearest NDB or non-directional beacons. The nearest VORs. There you have Palm Beach, there's Pahokee, Melbourne. This is the bearing of the VOR, the distance to the VOR, and the frequency. Guess which one that is? Yes, it's the nav radio. These are the frequencies you'd set up with the nav radio. And then it gets into airspaces. We're not going to discuss airspaces yet. That comes at a later advanced lesson. So those are your 3 pages: nav, waypoint, and nearest. And those are all the subpages within it. The next button over is your VNav page, which basically is where we got to from the nav page group. It's just a quicker way to get there. And the last button on the bottom is your procedures. This is for doing departures and arrivals. This is an advanced class lesson. We're not going to cover this here, but that's what the PROC means. It's for procedures. So let's go into our flight plan. We saw the range button used on the map. This is a Direct To button. I'll go over it again in a minute. But what we have now is a menu button. If we're in our active flight plan and we press the menu button, this gives us some options. We can activate the leg, meaning regardless of how many legs or waypoints you have inside your flight plan, you can highlight one and activate it, and the GPS will point you directly to that waypoint. Then if you create a flight plan, you can come down here and save it. And then it will be there for you to use later on through your flight catalog. Then you can invert a flight plan. Say you fly from Stewart to Tampa, and you're vectoring yourself north of the lake, south of the Avon Park bombing range, around Lake City, and then into Tampa. You land, you get out of your airplane, you go have lunch, you come back, you want to get back to Stewart, you want to fly the same route. You don't have to create a new flight plan. You simply take the existing flight plan and you invert it, and it will take you right back. The next one is delete flight plan, which you're going to need to use this if you're creating or using the GPS for flight plans. Because if you leave a flight plan in there and add to it, it's going to take you all over the place. So the cleanest, easiest thing that you can do is delete flight plan. So you highlight it and you press the enter button. And that's going to leave you with a blank page and only your current location as the waypoint. Now we have an open, clean flight plan. The last thing down here is delete approach. So if you have an approach loaded in your flight plan and you get diverted and you're not going to fly that one, you can delete just the approach but leave the rest of the flight plan. Don't ask me what crossfill is because I haven't a clue. Again, anytime you're stuck and you can't get back to the flight plan menu and this doesn't work, press and hold clear. Let's look at loading a flight plan. We've created a flight plan in Little Nav Map. Now we want to load it in here. Well, the first thing we want to do is make sure we do not have a cursor. Again, to change cursor on and off, you have to push the cursor button. That turns it on and off. So we want the cursor off, and then we want to turn the small knob. That loads our flight plan catalog. Here are all the flight plans we have saved. So we want to select one of these. We have to press the cursor, and then we have to navigate using the outer knob down to the one we want, and then press enter. Nothing appears to have done anything, right? Well, that's because we're on the first nav window, meaning we're only seeing what's ahead of us. Now, since we're in Stewart facing northwest, we're not going to see Palm Beach. So here's where we would change to our map view. And we're going to zoom in a little bit. And there's our flight plan from Stewart to Snickler to Amilla to Trone to Palm Beach. Now let's go back to the direct to. Again, if you want to go direct to somewhere, if you're flying along and all of a sudden have a change of heart, you want to go to Kissimmee instead of to Vero Beach, you can enter the flight plan window, delete the flight plan, enter, and push the cursor, turn the little knob, then I can put in K. Remember, the small knob changes the content, the big knob changes the cursor. KIS, and I don't always have to go to the right, I can go to the left. There's Kissimmee. Press enter and accept. Then I can highlight it, hit the direct to, and activate it. When I go to my flight plan, that's where I have to go to get to Kissimmee. And there it is, Stewart to Kissimmee. I had a direct flight to it. Now you may be thinking, wow, that's pointing out in the ocean. No, no, no. My airplane is pointing towards Lake Okeechobee, or actually it's pointing more towards Tallahassee. And there's Kissimmee. This is just scratching the surface of what you can do with this program. We'll get into a lot more detail with the OBS feature, with the procedure feature, and we'll make really good use of the GPS. And I want to say thank you to the group at RealSimGear for their phenomenal deal in selling us this piece of equipment. They're pretty awesome. All right, let's look and see how we create a flight plan in Little Nav Map, and then we get it into the GPS for our autopilot to follow. First thing we have to do is press the window key on the keyboard, which will bring up our map, our menu, and then select the Little Nav Map. Now this should be on the right-hand monitor, but I'm going to bring it to the center monitor for purposes of this video. Now I already have a flight plan in here, so I'm going to delete that flight plan. So we're going to create a flight plan using Little Nav Map. We're going to come down here. We're going to open up the map to a larger size with this button here. I'm going to move this tab sheet out of the way. We don't need that much information. So we're going to start at Witham Field. We're going to come in and then we're going to right click on the blue dot or the airport dot. They're not all blue. Some of them are gray, some of them are white, depending on what kind of airfield it is. So I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to select Set Airport Witham Field KSUA as departure. Very important. That's our first waypoint. Now if you see, our airplane is sitting on the runway and it just jumped to it. It's going to do that unless we turn off center right here. Turn off center aircraft. Now that will stop jumping to it, but if we follow our flight on Little Nav Map, we're going to have to turn that back on. So now where do we want to go? We want to go to Punta Gorda. So over here is KPGD Punta Gorda. So I'm going to zoom in and right mouse click on the blue icon and come up here and select Set Airport Punta Gorda KPGD as destination. So there we have a flight plan. That is your basic, no frills flight plan. Stewart straight to Punta Gorda. I want to make a few changes here. Well, first of all, I don't know which direction I'm going to be taking off. Since the simulator put me on runway 30, I'm assuming this is the direction I'm going to go. So I'm going to look for a waypoint out here. Let's go to Expresso. So I'm going to right click on Expresso. And then down here, it's going to say Add Waypoint Expresso to Flight Plan. Right below it, it's going to say Append Waypoint. Huge difference here. Huge difference. If you select Append, it is going to put it at the end of your flight plan, meaning after your destination airfield. If you select Add, it puts it in line with or in between the two airfields. Now we're going to come out here and we're going to bring our flight up into the Okeechobee area because one of our passengers has a fear of flying over water. So we're going to select this one. We're going to right click in the triangle and select Add Waypoint MovP to Flight Plan. So now we can see our flight plan coming to MovP. We're going to zoom out. And we don't know which direction we're going to be landing, so we're going to take a wild guess and say we're going to be landing from north to south. So I'm going to select Erva and add it. And then that gives us a nice approach directly for runway 22. If air traffic control changes our runway, they will vector us on how to get there. So now we have a simple 3-waypoint flight plan. Now, this one's getting a little close to the bombing range that we're not allowed to be in. So I'm just going to give us a little bit of a diversion down to black. I'm going to add that, and there we go. Notice, as long as I say add, it's going to put it in between the next two closest waypoints. Now, if you're very close to a waypoint, it may put it afterward. And if you need to change that, select it over here, right mouse click, and choose move up or move down to place it in the correct order. I'm going to put that back in there. So we have Stewart to Expresso to Munvit, Black, Erva, down to Punta Gorda. And that's our flight plan. Now we can save our flight plan to keep it and edit it for future use by going to Save Flight Plan, or preferably Save Flight Plan as Little Nav Map Plan. That way Little Nav Map can continue to edit it. For our exercise, we're going to simply come down here and export it right to X-Plane. There are various different types of simulators that this works with, but we want it to go for X-Plane 11 and 12. So I click on that and it opens up a dialog window. Now this window will open up the active flight plan window that X-Plane sees. So don't save it anywhere else, save it to the output FMS plans. And I'm going to save it simply as KSUA to KPGD. Oh, I already had one there. So do I want to replace it? No. So I'm going to rename this, put my cursor in here, -2. Now my flight plan is saved. I'm done with Little Nav Map. I can get rid of it. Now I'm going to come into my GPS, and to load my flight plan, I'm going to go to the Flight Plan button. I have an active flight plan, so I want to go to Menu, Delete Flight Plan. It's empty. I have no cursor. I'm going to turn the small button. There's my new flight plan. I have a cursor so I can move it, select it. I press enter, and there's my flight plan. It's that simple. Let's look at that again. We're going to go to Flight Plan. We're going to go to Menu. We're going to go down to Delete Flight Plan, empty, no cursor, turn the small knob, Flight Plan Catalog, navigate to my flight plan, press enter, and it's loaded. If I go to the flight plan list, there's all of the waypoints that we selected. It gives us our direction to track, our distance, our cumulative distance. All the information we need. Once I get to Punta Gorda and I want to fly back the same way, go to Menu, Invert Flight Plan, and now I'm Punta Gorda to Stewart. It doesn't get any easier than that.